In this episode of Beyond the Mode, we'll talk to Anil Gokarn, a former auto industry expert turned waste management superhero. Anil swapped his corporate job for a social enterprise opportunity and formed ProEarth Ecosystems. His company quite literally turns trash to cash. Join me to understand more about how a business can be set up while working on social causes and what are the hurdles one has to overcome behind the scenes. So Anil, welcome to Beyond the Mode. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you so much.
So you are the trash to the cash guy, right?
Should say that.
You're the guy who makes money from waste. And you're for profit, you are not a non-profit. You are a social enterprise, is that what you call it?
Yes. Yeah. I would say we are a for-profit with an objective, with a key social objective in mind.
The key social objective.
Yeah.
So social enterprise, very clear you're for profit. You turn upwards of crore and a half, which is fantastic. So you have that entrepreneurial zeal. Very clear that you want to make a change in society. And your background was mechanical. I think you worked in the auto industry.
Yes.
So very quickly, what was that? Where were you? What caused the shift? I would say to happen, because I'm always curious as to when people, what goes in their mind, right? At what point do they actually say enough? And at what point do they actually go do some introspection? What is that process? How is that decision making? What are the challenges, I would say, support system hai, nahi hai, what are the questions? How do you really find out that? And then how do you start?
Yeah. So well, that's a bit of a story. I'd love to talk about that. See, what happened is that I grew up in a family that is basically, I come from a background of entrepreneurs and industrialists actually.
Mm-hmm.
So my father founded a company which is an automobile component manufacturing unit. And so when I was growing up, the thing was for me, it's like, you have to, he set, the benchmark for me.
So he said you have to be an entrepreneur.
No, not really.
No.
So interestingly, my father was around only in my childhood. At the age of 9, he passed away.
Oh.
And then my mother actually ran the business after that. So it was quite an, I would say, very unique sort of circumstances. And for me, the benchmark was my father, in the sense that he started a company in the most difficult times. And for me, it seemed like that's the goal that I should sort of live up to. And so the way I studied and the educational background that I have is basically engineering. I did mechanical engineering, and then and I was crazy about cars, so it really started from there. And I decided that if I want to study automobile engineering, then it has to be at the best place possible. So I did my master's in Germany at one of the leading universities, the University of Aachen. And my goal was, like anybody else at that time, was like to be part of the auto industry, grow in the industry, and really, I would say, set some new standards, or be part of, bringing new technologies on board, or innovating in engineering. That was really, where I started off after I finished my education and joined the automobile industry. But while spending time in the auto industry, I began to, what do we finally educate ourselves for? Because we have to observe what's going around and really make meaningful sense out of it and see what really, how do you contribute to society? Finally, as engineers, that's what, we want to contribute in a big way to society. And that was really my focus. And while I was going around, I got the chance to travel quite a bit in my automobile career. So what happened was I was literally traveling all across the country and also outside the country. And it gave me the perspective that, there are deeper and bigger issues at stake here. And it's not about just, me, let's say, enriching myself, but there are...
so was it specifically from India context?
Specifically from India context, yes.
Okay.
And wherever I traveled, I was seeing that there's a degradation of the environment. There's like garbage littered all over the place. There are toxic fumes everywhere.
But were you interested in environment before? While growing up, and was there an environmental bent or no? It was not there.
No. So I had no idea about this at all. Okay. So it was just something that I began to observe, and I would say it comes from, also probably comes from my upbringing to some extent, because my grandparents were also part of the freedom struggle and all of that. I mean, these were discussions that happened in your family.
Patriotic.
So there's that patriotic quality also was there. And what can we do to sort of contribute was really, that was really always at the back of my mind. It wasn't conscious at that time. It was not a conscious
small seed.
It's a small something at the back of your mind saying that it's that's also as important.
This is an issue.
Yeah,
which needs someone to solve it.
Exactly. And then while I was traveling, I think it really gave me that focus in terms of understanding
So
the
is it
scale.
metro travel or is it like
All
outside?
No, it's not cities, interiors. So, these topics were continuously kind of an issue for me, and I think what precipitated the whole thing, we wanted to know exactly how that shift happens.
Yeah. What was there one moment?
No, I wouldn't say there was one moment, but I think it was a build-up. So what happens is like at the same time, I was feeling that the whole corporate lifestyle was also not something I was really happy, or I wasn't feeling
The sense of
fulfillment.
fulfillment.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that also contributed in a big way, and the kind of pressures in the corporate environment don't allow you to actually sit back and reflect. So you're just running from one situation to another. There's no scope for it or time for reflection on whether what you're doing really has any meaning at the end of the day. So I think for me those aspects also played a role, and at the end of the day it was a build-up where I said, I'm not fulfilled, I'm not feeling satisfied. I thought this is really what I educated myself for, but when I really got into it, I realized this. I couldn't see the end of
The journey.
the journey. It wasn't clear, and
Or maybe you knew this journey would take you nowhere.
yeah, it's a feeling. It's a feeling that you're not really. You're probably contributing to the lives of very few people, and that too those people who are more, I would say, already have all kinds of privileges anyway. But there's a larger issue here, particularly in India. When you look at what's happening around, there are many things that all of us should consider contributing towards. That's really what struck me. And there were also certain subjects that were hitting me hard emotionally. Things like, the farmers committing suicide, the kind of issues that we have on food security, and the way we are destroying our forests, the way so-called development is impacting us negatively. All these topics were, so all of it sort of came together. And I think the precipitating factor for me was that I wasn't really happy finally at my corporate job. And then when I decided to quit, I had I thought about it, deeply, and I felt that it would just be a change of companies. If I, let's say, went from the same field to another company, it wasn't really a change. It was just the same thing in a different place.
Packaged differently.
Yeah, packaged differently. And I would end up back the next 5 years thinking the same thing.
Right.
So I think that really struck me as I need to do something.
So you married at that time?
Yes.
You were married?
Yes. So
and did your wife support your decision?
absolutely, she was like completely behind me on it. Otherwise, it was not something viable. So she was totally, and
She was working that time.
she was, yeah.
What was the security? Did you have a security net? I mean, the reason I'm asking what happens is when most people decide, okay, most people I think have a cause, have a passion, they feel they want to do something, but that thing about, okay, where do I get my next money from, how am I going to survive, and especially if you're married, then if you have a child, then you kind of,
Yes.
that I think hits people, especially in India, when they're not conditioned,
Yes.
or when this journey is in the unknown, right?
Exactly.
So how did you handle that?
Yeah, so for me, there was a safety net and for me the safety net was that I didn't have any liabilities. I didn't have any loans or anything to pay off. The other thing was I didn't have. So I have a stake in a family business. So it not that I have it as cash, but it's something that I own. So in a worst case scenario, I can, and my plan was that I'll come up with something in 3 months, but it took me 2 years to actually crystallize something and really work towards an actual revenue making activity. It took me about 2 years to come to that stage. So so that's really, so for me, so when I quit from the automobile industry, the plan was actually to start from scratch. There was no plan in place. The idea was jump into the unknown.
Excellent.
Okay, and just go out and explore. And so that's really what I did. And for the next 2 years, it was all only exploration. Very conscious and very, I would say a committed journey towards exploration.
Were you afraid, scared?
Oh yeah. Like the first 2 months, I was almost paralyzed in fear. Yeah. So because it's such an unknown, and the point is your identity. See, this is where you begin to realize where your identity is.
Correct.
And how intimately your identity is connected with all these brands and these companies and this lifestyle
And your educational background.
and your educational background, and the fact that once you've taken a certain direction, to change that direction, the amount of resistance.
It's an identity crisis.
It's an identity crisis. Yeah, it's an identity crisis.
Who is Anil?
Yeah,
Is he the mech engineer? Is he?
Yeah. So, for example, you won't even be able to answer a simple question when somebody comes up in front of you saying, "What do you do?"
Yeah.
You won't be able to answer that question. So that's where you put yourself in when you take these kind of steps.
Decisions and steps.
Yeah.
So what were you telling people when they said, "What do you do?"
Yeah. So I was.
So
there was no. So in that time when people asked me, "What are you doing?" I was like, I'm just exploring that. But that's not a convincing answer for anybody, because that's not paying your bills. Right? So these are the kind of literally when you asked me that question, so there was at least a month where I was completely paralyzed in fear. Okay,
so I was building anxiety.
Yeah, I was anxious. I was wondering what is the next thing that's going to happen. So it was like crisis mode, really. And
so this is what happens. Right? You get the courage, you take the jump. But when you take the jump, you're like, oh shit.
Yes. So that exploration of 2 years, I would say, is the best education that I got ever. Okay, because I was exploring every single subject.
In waste management?
No, not just waste management.
Okay.
I kind of decided to focus on. I was clear that I want to look at the environment. I want to look at social issues. But there was no clarity in terms of how that will convert into a revenue generating activity.
Right.
How that is going to actually building up a business was a faraway dream at that point in time. Okay, it was about just trying to understand what is it that what is my deepest motivation, and what is that motivation of mine which will actually propel me for the long term. It was a process of self-discovery. Yeah, it was a process of self-discovery, and for that there are no limits, so I was like studying anything from spiritual topics, near-death experiences, okay, to maybe social justice issues, to environmental concerns, to agriculture, to history, about colonialism. You name it, there were literally any topics that I was taking up and trying to understand from that lens what has led to this current crisis around the environment. In fact, that was really for me, I was trying to discover.
But there were two threads, right? So near-death experience, spirituality,
Yeah.
has nothing to do with actual the environment at this point in time.
Yes.
But so you were exploring two different separate facets of your life.
Yes. So it's like a mixture of your personal journey of development combined with what are you trying to do as a
It's personal transformation.
Yeah,
But how long did it take for you to, okay, this is what I'm doing.
yes.
I'm going to do, let's say, get in this space of waste,
Yes.
right? And exactly what am I offering? How long did that take?
So that was a 2-year journey.
That itself was 2 years.
That was a 2-year journey. Okay. So in 2012 December I quit from the automobile industry, and let's say I founded ProEarth in 2014, September of 2014. So that was the journey.
And 2014, but September, you were clear exactly what you want to do.
It was crystal clear.
Crystal clear.
Yes.
You had a plan.
Yes, I had a plan, and I would say my real, where things went click, right? That was when I was on a farm in Dehradun. Okay, so I was looking at working with different environmental groups, environmentalists, working, also attending a lot of conferences on various subjects from energy to water resource management to to waste management. But at that time, it was not clear to me that waste is really the goal. But when I lived on that farm, and that is Dr. Vandana Shiva, who's a global environmentalist, I said I have to actually, I was most drawn by her philosophy. Actually, when I started, doing my
So, what
studies.
philosophy was this?
So this is about how today corporations and the capitalist system is really leading to the environmental crisis, and those intimate links, she has been able to actually join the dots.
Oh.
So you can see how and what attitudes and what philosophies lead to the destruction of the environment. Okay, so when I lived on her farm, there was a library there. And on that farm, I was like, I spent about 3 months. No, sorry, it was about 1.5 to 2 months I spent in Dehradun at her farm. And at that library, I was like reading these books on the environment. And most of them are signed by the authors, because she's a very well-known personality. So, I was able to make those linkages on really and building up my
Were you
personal.
able to connect your dots also?
Yeah, and also build up the strength of philosophy to get into something, because you need that philosophical strength and backing, which then makes you invulnerable when you get into the field. So that's really what
Your core belief foundation.
yeah, actually your set of beliefs.
Yeah.
So for me, I think that was the place where my philosophical backing really got grounded.
And how was the support from your home? I mean, I know your wife was supporting, but other than that,
Well, the rest of the family was kind of mystified.
what does Anil do?
Yeah, so they were like, but there was one of my aunts and one of my cousin who was like rock solid backing me up, saying that this is absolutely the way to go.
So let's say, so come 2014, you're very clear what you want to do. So what is, if you can just quickly tell us, what does ProEarth do, right? ProEarth is your company, your enterprise. What does ProEarth do? What does it do? What is the change you're trying to effect? And where is it that you're getting your satisfaction from? Are you getting your satisfaction now?
Yes, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. So without that, you can't go on a journey that's now lasted for almost a decade. And this is not an easy place at all.
Correct.
Okay. A lot of visions around what I want this company to do. Okay. So it was about waste management was just one part of it. So I was thinking about 4 pillars of activities that I really wanted to focus on, which was water resource management, waste, energy, and food. Okay. But then as I got into it, I realized every different field is so specialized and requires so much focus that it's not possible for me to handle all of it together. Maybe at some point of time in future, maybe I'll get the chance. But for now, what really drew me strongly was waste management. So I'm really out there fully. This is like my, I would say, every waking hour, it's my focus right now. So,
and when you say waste management, what do you mean?
So what we do is the ProEarth is a company that will look at handling waste in a sustainable way, because waste today is one of the biggest contributors to climate change. One of the, significant. I think I would be wrong in saying the biggest, but very significant contributor to climate change. And the problem is humongous. Okay, it's a global problem, and specifically in India, we've got our own challenges. And this company is, I started this company to focus on finding sustainable solutions, particularly focused on organic waste to start with, because that's the largest share of the waste that we generate in our communities and in our country. And also the fact that this, what we call waste, is actually is an unbelievable resource which could actually help us sustainably grow our food in a safe and sustainable manner, without the use of chemicals and pesticides and all that.
And help heal the planet
And
also.
Exactly, and also cool the planet at the same time.
And cool the planet.
Yes.
So let's, so waste, right? So what you have organic waste, which you're saying is the majority, right? So 60%?
60%. Yes.
And then 40% is what?
So 60% is organic.
Mhm.
The next 20 to 25% is recyclable materials, which can be looped back into the circular economy. And what remains is about, I would say, 15%, 10 to 15%, which is neither compostable nor recyclable, which really needs to go to some sort of a final treatment. There are a lot of debates on how that should be done.
So plastic comes there.
No, plastic, a lot of it is recyclable.
Okay.
But yeah, there are now alarmingly increasing amount of plastics which cannot be recycled as well. So, and the myth around plastic recycling is another topic for another day. It's another huge discussion.
Right.
And without actually reducing the consumption of plastic, we are not really going to really solve problems.
So 10 to 15% is what kind of?
So that would be contaminated waste. It could be hazardous materials, household hazardous like sanitary waste. It could be chemicals, medicines, medical waste. All of this forms 15% of our city's waste. And that needs to be either incinerated or landfilled in a scientific manner.
Right.
Okay. So the idea is that it is possible to actually, find sustainable ways that will not create negative impact socially and environmentally, and still solve the problem. But that's really what, as a vision, I wanted to set for ProEarth. So in actual action on the ground, what we do is we work with housing communities across Pune, and we help communities to first change their behavior in terms of segregating at source, get them to keep their organic waste, which is 60%.
So these communities are your customers, they pay
are
you?
customers. So they pay us. Yes.
So you're not working with the government
So no.
directly?
No. So we are not working with government.
So it's a private sector.
Yes.
You're a private sector company, you work in the private sector, you work with these communities,
Yes.
and you go in and educate them first?
Yes.
How does it work?
So what we do is we propose an entire plan to a community who wants to work with us, and we go holistically. We look at all aspects of waste management, right from setting the policy in the community so that there's a successful implementation, then looking at education and awareness so that people change their behavior, then setting the right systems, because right from collection of the waste to its disposal, you have to have a established and easy system. And there has to be also dignity for the people who are working in that system. There has to be proper equipment given to them, organize them properly, and also train and help them to do their work efficiently and easily. And finally, process as much as possible within the compound, so that even our collection systems are obviously have a carbon footprint behind them. So if we are able to prevent the collection itself, we also save a huge amount.
This is mostly the organic waste.
The organic.
The 60%.
Yes.
So the 60% actually stays back in the society, in the housing complex,
Yes.
community. Right? It doesn't even go out.
It doesn't go out. Right.
And that's where you're doing this composting. Right?
Yes. And composting is an easy, affordable method which addresses all organic waste, because any other technology is either, there are benefits, obviously there are many benefits of other technologies like biogas. Obviously those technologies are also needed, but in certain contexts you need to simplify things, you need to be affordable, and you need to be able to address a large pool of the organic waste, because biogas cannot take all of your organic waste. You have to again segregate it, you have to sort it. So there are complications, and composting is just I would say a grassroots method of solving the problem. So that's why we are focusing on that.
So, what is the incentive for someone to come here, to come to you? Is there any incentive in place? Is it are they going out of their way? Is it compulsory? Is there an incentive mechanism? What is it?
Yeah. So initially when we started our activity, that's when there were no incentive actually, and in fact we were going against the flow. So for example, it's always cheaper and easier just to mix all your waste, put it on a tractor and go and dump it somewhere. It's the easiest and the cheapest.
And we all know how that goes.
Yeah. So we have to compete in this environment where we have to say you need to come and pay us more than what you're paying right now. You have to build infrastructure. You have to pay us more. And what you get in return is not something directly that's impacting your pocket. It's not an incentive that immediately sort of makes it a motivation. Okay, it's for most people this is some blurry thing out there, where you're saying that your the city's air will become cleaner.
There's no metrics on that.
So it's not something you can directly perceive, but you have to take it as on faith. So obviously, when we started off, we didn't have that many customers whom we could immediately convince. But those people who came on board, in fact, our first customer is still working with us. Okay.
So that's what I also remember you telling me before. You have a recurring business model.
Yes.
So your customers sign on and then
they stay with us.
They stay with you. They keep paying you money. Right? That makes a very sustainable business from business model perspective. Also.
Yes. So we have a start. So what we propose to the community is to invest in the infrastructure, pay us, and then we say then we'll service you and provide you, all the backup long term. So we are there for decades if you want. We can be there to support you and back you up, to continuously do the right thing. So we are there to handhold you through the entire process, take the pain away from you, and really give you the results. That's really where we are. And while we got into it, I would say it was, let's say, beginner's luck that the regulations also started to come in. Okay, and I'm lucky.
When did this happen?
This was in 2013-14.
The regulations are coming in.
Local. So that's where it's interesting. It wasn't a national regulation. Okay. So I have to congratulate the Pune Municipal Corporation for their visionary policies at that time, which was far ahead of its time, and they were already pushing large communities to compost on their own, so that the waste coming into the municipal system gets reduced, and ultimately the municipality is not going and dumping in somebody else's compound. Okay, and creating a humongous crisis somewhere else. While large parts of the city, but particularly affluent parts of the city, are living a great life, but the rest of the community is bearing the brunt of their waste. Okay, so it's a social justice issue also. So,
and I remember you telling me this is methane, right?
There are methane emissions that are generated, and methane is just one of the constituents. There's like nitrous oxide. There's all kinds of hydrogen sulfide, toxic emissions coming from landfills. You also have leachates leaching into the groundwater system,
and which are far poisonous than carbon dioxide.
Extremely toxic.
Extremely. Yeah. So what degree are we talking about? The magnitude of?
So methane is considered about 28 times to 30 times more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide.
Wow.
Yeah. And now growing research is coming. The last 3 years, a lot of research is coming out about how terrible methane emissions are on the impact and on the overall consequences on climate change.
So we have carbon footprint now. Probably we get methane footprint also.
Yes. So that's a growing understanding that's coming from a lot of global research. Okay. And waste contributes about 20% to the overall methane footprint globally. That's a pretty large share, I would say.
I'm hitting above that.
Yeah. The great thing about doing the right thing is when you do one right thing, it has multiple consequences in the right direction. So that's really, and that is the deeper satisfaction that I get when I do.
And so, for example,
So, for example, if you start with composting properly, then you can actually create a lot of meaningful, dignified jobs. So we hire people who are actually daily wagers or who are immigrants from outside Pune, who don't have a stable job. Neither do they have, they're not skilled, they're not educated. Maybe they've just studied up to 8th standard or 10th standard. The idea is that we are hiring such people, we are training them to work with us, going from community to community, making sure that the waste is composted. And the idea is the community where we are composting itself is not disturbed by this. So leave aside, the rest of the city is not going to be disturbed by this work. Okay, so there is no odors, there is no flies, there are no pests. And ultimately you are generating a clean soil healing material, which is actually when applied now a lot of research is coming on the impact of compost on soil as well. It actually reduces your water requirement when you use it in the garden. It continues to absorb carbon dioxide from the air, so it's actually like cooling the planet even when it's applied on the soil. And then compost has all kinds of microorganisms in it. There are bacteria, fungus, all of it that are actually adding to the fertility of the soil. And we have another huge crisis impending. We have all our soils are dead. We've got no nutrients in the soil. We've used excessive chemicals in our agriculture, and we have to renew and heal the soil. So if we were to just think about one city, let's say Pune, generates 1,000 tons of organic waste every day. 1,000 tons, okay, every day.
Massive.
So if we were to just convert all of
this is all the waste? Or this is
no,
only
just the
organic?
organic.
This is just the
Just the
organic.
organic. Okay. So if we were to convert that into meaningful fertilizer, which is, there are a lot of challenges. I'm not saying this is an easy subject, but all I'm trying to say is that if you have that vision in mind, that if you were able to convert all of this into sustainable compost, and that were to go into all our farms, and if you were able to grow out of that, then just think about even the foreign exchange that our country could save, because obviously for all chemical fertilizers are fossil fuel dependent, and we are not a fossil fuel generating country. And we are talking about a country where we have more than 60 cities with a population greater than 1 million. Okay. And if you look at the landfill statistics, it's quite alarming. We've got the highest landfill in the world, like one of the highest landfills in Delhi. Ghazipur landfill it has waste piled up beyond 65 meters. That is the size of a 23-story building.
Wow.
Okay. So that's the kind of waste we are generating in our cities, and we've got
Again, this is organic waste or this is normal?
all of it together.
All waste.
All of it together. But 60% of that is organic. So imagine if we were to compost, just leave everything aside. Just if we were to compost, forget about recycling, forget about all of that. If we were just to sort out our organic and just treat it, our landfills would just become half straight.
And we would heal our
Yeah.
soil
Yes.
for the future generations.
That's the kind of impact that's possible with this, with these interventions.
And this is a very low end. It's not low end technology, right? It's not. But is there a lot of new technology coming in now?
No, so this is not a place where we need to worry about technology. We have to, in fact, move in the opposite direction. We have to look at traditional methods. Because we are looking at, so we have to learn from farmers actually.
Is it nature's technology?
Nature. We have to just multiply what nature is doing is best at. I think that's the real education that we need to focus on for future generations.
And I remember you telling me also that even these people that you employ daily, you give them health insurance and
Yes.
you take care of them,
Yes.
provident fund.
Yes. So for me, the idea was that a lot of these issues are social issues, but I was clear from day one that I don't want to run an NGO. It has to be a commercial, it has to be a profitable organization. Only profitable entities will grow and ultimately scale. And so that was really my philosophy when I started off ProEarth. And the idea was the people who work with us also have to eventually this philosophy has to percolate down to the people who work with us, and those social benefits have to really come to the people who are working with us. So that was also the thinking when I.
So when you started, right, and now, are you seeing, what are the differences you're seeing? From an awareness perspective, are regulations coming and supporting you? And I'm talking across the country. So where are we at with this?
So I'm looking forward to a very optimistic and future, because I think the regulations are helping us. I think there's a larger awareness in the community from when we started 10 years ago to now. I can see how people have understood there's a deeper understanding and an awareness coming. In cities, the understanding around waste is growing. Corporates are getting involved. The CSR fraternity has started to jump on board. They've understood that there are large brands and companies who are funding projects like these around waste management. So I partnered with an NGO called Inora, which I consider to be my mentor organization. They actually educated me in composting. Okay. It's their method and technology that I implement in the field. So Inora has.
And this is a non-profit.
This is a non-profit. So they have been funded by companies like Praj, by Mercedes-Benz, by Forbes Marshall, by pharmaceutical companies like ACG.
Out of the CSR?
Out of their CSR funds to do projects in rural areas on waste management, to set up composting projects in gram panchayats in peri-urban areas of Pune. So the deeper understanding, and plus, if you see global research now is also, I would say, just reinforcing the kind of benefits of doing sustainable waste management, focused on composting as a grassroots level method, which is really successful. And so for that reason, I'm very optimistic that the future is going to.
Excited?
Very excited. Obviously excited, because also a lot of international agencies now are also looking to fund projects in countries like India, Southeast Asia, to promote these kind of activities and scale these kind of activities. Because ultimately, this has the maximum potential for reversing the negative effects of climate change. Okay. So for me, it's exciting times, and I'm looking forward to.
And how's the government from a regulation perspective? Where are we? So do we have the regulations? Are there penalties in place?
Yes.
Are they being enforced?
Yeah. So when it comes to regulations, I think the government has done a fantastic amount of job in the last since 2015 onwards.
And again, you're talking to the country.
It's a countrywide
Initiative.
action, and the Swachh Bharat mission, obviously, as a mission, has definitely brought awareness to this subject, in a big way. Okay, and it has percolated down to the last village, at the village level. Okay, and the next thing is about the kind of I would say regulations and policies that are now coming into force. You can see that the policy came in 2016. We are in 23 now, but you see that every year it's getting stricter and stricter and stricter. You see that the government has a clear vision that they want to. It's not an easy job, for sure, to change the behaviors of 1.3 billion people. So the idea is that you get stricter and stricter in a slow and but firm and progressive direction, and that is happening. Okay, you see that happening, and that is really, I would say, a very optimistic perspective. The government is doing its bit for sure. There's no question about it.
So only three things can happen, right, to change behavior. One is either there has to be an incentive in place.
Yeah.
Two, some sort of penalty.
Yeah.
Three, the consciousness level has to change from within, right? So
Yes.
people have to be more conscious of their behavior.
Exactly.
So
So-
consciousness level, I think, is a slow process.
Exactly.
So that's on a conscious level. But are there any so between incentive and penalty? Where are we? Is there an incentive to, let's say, communities to do this kind of stuff?
Yes. So there are both now. So we've got both the carrot and stick approach that's there. So on the one side, the regulations right down to the municipal systems and down to let's say even village level, gram panchayats and nagar parishads now have clear mandates and regulations where they have to implement these policies on the ground. So there are fines that are notified at state level, which have to be adopted at the local level. And so those who don't comply with segregation, those who are considered bulk waste generators, who don't compost within their premises, are going to be paying heavy fines in the coming future. At the same time, there are all kinds of incentives as well. There are a lot of public bodies now looking at giving incentives in terms of property tax rebates. They are looking at giving initial investments that are needed. They are willing to discount them, give some subsidies
The capex.
on the capex. There are now new models also being considered where potentially municipal authorities will buy back compost from communities who are composting. Many different models are being experimented and explored on, and incentives are being definitely considered.
Is it very capex heavy?
It is capex heavy, yes. So for example, but you see, but the strange thing I tell you about this is that nobody can claim that they cannot afford this. That's the most interesting part about waste management. At its highest and most expensive, I would say a community would have to spend something around 5,000 to 6,000 rupees per family one time. Okay, and they would have to spend something like 70 to depending on what the type of technology is, it could be anywhere between 70 to maybe 200 at the highest. Okay, it will be 70 to 200 rupees per household in a month. That's for an entire family I'm talking about.
Right.
Okay, not for an individual. When we as urban citizens are paying let's say between 5 to 800 rupees just for a Tata Sky or
Netflix.
for a Netflix connection, paying 200 rupees per month at its highest, I'm saying,
Right.
to get sustainable and clean organized waste management is nothing that you're asking for. You're not asking for an arm and leg to actually solve this problem.
And this compost, can you sell it?
Yes, the compost can be sold provided there are some quality requirements and there are some you have to take care of some issues, like for example excessively organic waste mixed with plastic and then composted can have microplastics in it. You can't have that sort of compost then going into your farms and contaminating the
So
soil.
let's say this is the quality checks are adhered to.
Yes.
Are farmers buying it? This
Yes,
kind of compost?
yes, farmers are buying it. There are farmers who are willing to come to your location and take it away. If you really look for it, there will be farmers who are willing to come to your community. If you have a tractor load of compost, and you might as well just donate it to them because they've taken the trouble to bring. They've come all the way with their tractor. It costs money to even transport that material. So if a farmer decides to come, maybe you should just hand over your compost to them.
Right.
So, for example, if there would be the right kind of economy created for compost to be used in the farm and to create return on investments, at the one side you would have urban communities benefiting from that, and on the other side you will have rural communities also benefiting. So it's the amazing thing is all of it is win-win. So these are, the entire trail is a win-win trail, right from beginning to end.
Are you able to, from a peer perspective, right? Is this community kind of coming up now? People like yourselves who are interested in this area, who want to do and for-profit enterprise in this?
Yes, for sure. There are many organizations now across India who are beginning with the right philosophy, the right intent, and by the way, there is space for everybody.
I know there is just a lot of garbage in this country.
Yeah, so
There's a lot of money for taking.
Yes. So my point is there is scope for thousands of organizations to come up, and still there would be more space for all of us to survive and do well. So that's really the situation.
So how are you seeing this from your growth perspective for ProEarth? What is your expansion plan?
So right now so what we're looking to do is the kind of work that we're doing is very local, okay, because we have to really concentrate and bring results, and it's a very intense activity that requires focus, because the kind of people that work in this segment need the kind of push and monitoring to really deliver the results. So we are strongly focusing on Pune, and it was a conscious decision not to go all over the place, okay, and to really focus on one place. And so right now our growth structure is still strongly focused in Pune. We haven't even this, like for example, I told you Pune generates 1,000 tons of organic waste every day. We are only doing 10 tons right now per day. So just think about what scale is possible just in Pune. Okay, so the idea is we still need to focus. Even today, if you ask the Pune Municipal Corporation, there is still at least 300 to 400 tons of organic waste.
So you can be a 100 crore company in Pune itself.
You could be. Yes.
One could be a 100 crore company.
Could be, yes, in just one city.
Just one city.
Yeah. So that is the scale of potential. Okay, not that potential to actually get that potential is not easy.
Sure.
But in pure number terms, right, it is staggering what is possible. Okay, so right now our focus is still to grow in Pune only, but the story of our work is going around. Okay, and we started working with military establishments, we started working with educational institutions, we are working with corporates, we are and the other most satisfying thing for me in this field is that I end up meeting literally anybody and everybody in this field. Okay, so for in the auto industry, it was such a restricted industry, right? You are just meeting the same people all over the place. Okay, in waste management, you are meeting people right from waste pickers, right from housekeeping staff, right from security guards, to you are meeting politicians, you are meeting heads of businesses, you are meeting you're meeting citizen activists, you're meeting environmentalists, you're meeting military people, politicians, and literally. So my point is, waste is such an all-encompassing subject that really nobody gets left. I mean, there's literally you end up meeting the most unexpected people in this arena, and that's one of the other things that continuously motivates me.
Just some sort of intellectual satisfaction.
Yeah, it's amazing to meet people from so many different backgrounds, so many different specializations, and experts from all over the place, and that's another amazing and extremely enriching thing for me personally. So in my honest opinion, right, if you want to be sustainable and responsible, it should happen right under your nose, not in some other compound somewhere. The minute the waste leaves your compound, there's no guarantee what's really happening 90% of the time.
Right.
So in most cases, the most responsible companies would be handling it inside the compound, because then you have full transparency, you really know what's happening.
Do you have a plan in place where you can in turn create business opportunities or employment opportunities for other people, and using which you can actually build a momentum and a movement?
Yes, so that's a great question, because obviously in our the way we are structured, right? If we really have to scale, we have to look at innovative approaches. Either the traditional approaches would be to look at investment, to look at maybe doing social projects, to gap fund initially so that we have a step on the ground, and then convert. Obviously, then it has to run on its own steam as a commercial entity. Okay, but the third approach is what you are saying, is to look at how we can incentivize micro entrepreneurship and get individuals to look at working with us as entrepreneurs. And our model actually allows that, and we have experimented on it. We are still also learning, but I would say we've experimented. Like, for example, when we go to a project in a community, in case we are not able to reach the community on a daily basis with our own trained staff, then what we do is we train somebody there on a flexible level. We train somebody who's already working with that community, and we make sure that they are going to be paid by the community as a commercial entity. See, it's not about the fact that finally we want to stamp our identity on it, but what we want to do is we want to be, more importantly, we want to make sure that those people who have learned from us are doing the responsible thing. For that reason, we want to sort of have some kind of a binding structure around it.
Responsible and with the right process and with the right quality, right? So I think it's all about what I'm hearing is you're saying it's all about the quality.
Yes. To meet quality requirements, to meet the responsibility and the philosophy with which we are working, how can we maintain that and still spread in a large way? That aspect, right? I'm still learning. I can't say I have all the answers still. So maybe I'm looking for advice and guidance on those topics. Maybe there are some innovative ways we could consider how to bring. See, because while we scale, we also want to bind the people who are working using our methods in a way that they do that systematically. They do it in a disciplined manner, and they are responsible in the way they are doing. Because see, in waste management, it's very easy to manipulate things, and it's very easy to go in the wrong direction.
And so is there one philosophy in your field that some of your peers or folks in the industry don't agree with you? So that's a different way of thinking that you have?
Well, see, what I can say is, obviously you've got people, there are a lot of false solutions going around. Okay, that's for sure. And this is a big topic. This is another global topic. Okay, that there are a lot of companies that are selling gimmicks, that are selling all kinds of methods which are not really the real solutions. They are diversions away from the real solutions, and they are quick fixes, short term. So for example, 24-hour composting is a gimmick. Okay, so obviously there are people who will not. So in fact, we don't agree with a certain approach in many cases. There are technologies that we don't believe in. Okay, and in a growing direction in terms of let's say every day we are also learning. Anybody who's in waste management can't claim at the end of the day to be experts. We are all learning at the end of the day, and as more and more research is coming out on certain methods and technologies, we're beginning to see that there are a lot of issues in certain approaches. For example, incineration, gasification, plastic to fuel. A lot of global research is coming out that this is not the way to go. Even plastic that is now being used by cement factories for energy, or even the entire concept of waste to energy, there are a lot of question marks on it. So yes, for sure there are people who are selling all kinds of ideas and technologies. Everybody is looking to compete and show like being one step ahead of the other. And in that process, I think the real solutions should not get lost.
And if I had to ask you, what is the one thing that this business gave you that you were really not expecting?
Okay, that's Yeah, so let me see what I mean. I think that was. I think immediately what comes to me is I think it's like emotionally opened me up. I would say because I have to stand up and talk to large groups. I have to talk about this subject. I have now public speaking. All of that has become like I would say routine. It's like talking and trying to bring an emotional connection with people. I think that's the most unexpected part that.
So when you say emotionally open you up, and what does that mean? I mean, yes, public speaking and talking and being out there, but internally you think there's a shift.
Yes, because like I said, right, meeting so many people, it just like it expands your horizons. You understand so many hundreds of perspectives, and to try to consolidate those perspectives and still look at what really ends up on the winning side for everybody. These are not easy sort of issues to address. So it really it demands a lot out of you in terms of trying to bring all those issues on, and it also sensitizes you to things that you had no idea about at all. About how things can affect, for example, a waste picker, or how things that we just immediately take for granted, maybe in our silos, and what it can have an impact on somebody else's livelihood, or how it can. I mean, these connections you never make in your traditional, like I would say, in a corporate environment, for example. So it really opens you up emotionally. You have to be sensitive to those people who are. You have to deal with many different interests and try to bring everybody on a common ground, because waste management really is about. I mean, like I told you, it really integrates everybody. You've got citizens, you've got the administration, you've got the politicians, you've got you've got the actual people on the ground who are working. You've got environmental activists, you've got citizen related interests. All of that, bringing all of it together and then really looking for a solution that is a win-win is quite challenging, and to even deal with these subjects is something that really opens you up.
In this boring, non-glamorous industry, right? What was the most hilarious thing that you've come across, or that really, cracked you up?
Oh well, yeah. Let me think. What are the most? See, I think it's about. I think the most funny things are when let's say in awareness programs, and when you're engaged with the community in terms of how, let's say when you're talking about how much waste is being generated in the community, we bring out all these humongous statistics, and watching people's faces. When you're.
That's what we're doing?
Yeah, exactly. I think that is quite funny at one level. I mean, and astonishing. Some people are scared, some people are laughing, some people are, just to see the range of emotions come out when you say that, that, India is the largest waste producer in the world, and environmentally what it's doing to people.
Is it really the biggest? I thought, but you were telling me earlier on that New York produces like 10 times more than Bombay.
Yes, but if you put the country together, just because of our size as a population, and this is a World Bank study, which has come out, I would say 5 years ago. They did a global study on waste, and incidentally, India's numbers are even higher than China. So on the World Bank statistics, we are the largest waste producing country in the world.
Okay.
Not in per capita, because our populations are so huge, but just in terms of absolute quantity, we are the biggest.
I hope bulk of that is organic and it can be.
Bulk of it is organic.
I think that is a differentiator, right, for us.
Yes.
So we may actually have a happy ending as compared to other countries. Excellent. Anil, thank you so much for being on this show. So glad to have
Thank you so much.
been a pleasure, and I'm wishing ProEarth all the very best. And may you go places, and may you collect more and more garbage.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Well, thank you.